Blog Talk Radio.
Hello, everyone. Good morning. This is Lori Smith, and one child abuse survivor to another restoration. Glad to be here. It's Friday morning, 6:30 in the morning here, September the 9th. And, we're just doing a morning reflection, really, looking at what I need to work on, and what's positive, as far as my healing journey goes. And so hopefully this information will be helpful for somebody else out there. Thanks, everybody, for, for tuning in, taking the time to listen to my shows. I appreciate it. And, we'll get right into it. Make sure, you do a safety checklist, really. Make sure that you're safe enough to be listening to the show if you're a survivor of abuse, and that it's not going to trigger you, or this type of information isn't going to trigger you and cause you to go backward in your healing journey. That's very important. And like I say on pretty well every show, you can get that information from Adult Survivors of Child Abuse Samoa Center program. It's a Survivor to Thriver workbook, and it's other places too, but they've got a really lengthy 60-page chapter based on safety first in their Survivor to Thriver manual. So it's really worth taking a look at if you're not sure where you're at this morning and whether or not you'll be able to listen to the show, to be safe enough to listen that you won't hurt yourself or hurt somebody else, right? It's very important. Make sure you're safe enough before you listen to anything like this, that it's not going to trigger you and cause you to go sort of backward in your healing journey and you have a miserable day. You don't want that. Nobody does. So check yourself, make sure you're safe enough, and if you're not sure, just turn the show off, because you won't be hurting my feelings at all. And it's just not worth it. So make sure that you're safe enough, to listen. And thanks, everybody, for being here with me. And I'm just waking up, having a coffee. It's Friday. I'm really happy about that. This is a half day for me. I just work a half like a short shift, and then I'll be done until tomorrow, and then a short shift, and then I have Sundays off. So this is sort of winding down of my week, and I'm really happy about that, because I'm a little bit tired and just kind of still working on getting over that cold and trying to get healthier here. And so I'm glad it's Friday, and we'll get right into this. This is a morning reflection. How am I doing on my healing journey? Any particular things I need to work on? How am I feeling this morning? I'm feeling really pretty good this morning. No real issues coming up. No trauma in my life right now, which is good. Feel that I haven't had any flashbacks or anything like that, and feeling pretty emotionally stable, and so that's good. There's things that I want to work on that I haven't been able to do, but those things will eventually get done. So I'm not going to stress over it, and other than that, I'm feeling pretty good. So we can just check and make sure, see where we're at our healing journey, right? I want to look at HAVOCA's Adult Survivors of Sexual Abuse. They've got Cheryl wrote up an acronym from HAVOCA, HAVOCA, HAVOCA.org. That's Help for Adult Victims of Child Abuse.org, HAVOCA, and you can go there and check it out. There's a survivor little tab at the top of the web page, and if you click on that and then you look over on the left-hand side, there's all these tabs with all this information there. And on this particular page, she's got like an acronym with, she's written a whole bunch of stuff here using the letters Adult Survivors of Sexual Abuse, ADULT, etc. So we're looking at that, and I think what she's written here is really, really, really awesome. So we'll move on through this. Yesterday's was let your todays be filled with happiness, your tomorrows with visions of hope. Yesterday is already a dream, tomorrow's only a vision, but today well lived makes every yesterday a dream of happiness and every tomorrow a vision of hope. So that's awesome. Today's is take time to invest in yourself. You're worth it. Do something that makes you feel wonderful. Truly glad to be alive. Go for walks. Reflect during your quiet times. Reflect on what's good in your life, your family, your friends, those you love, or those who love you. That's awesome. I really like that. Take time to invest in yourself. You're worth it, she says. And do something that makes you feel wonderful. Truly glad to be alive. That's awesome. We have to make that time to do that. I know, years ago when I was struggling, I really couldn't see anything good for a long time. Really couldn't see any real reason why I should be happy about being on this planet. And I had periods in my life where that sort of took over my thinking, and I was obviously struggling and distressed. I really didn't reach out for help. I never reached out for help, until I hit rock bottom, and at the age of 41 and a half. So, I really wish that I would have got help a lot sooner, because since I've been getting the help that I need and really reaching out, I enjoy life, and I can find enjoyment in life, and I wish I would have done this a lot sooner, a long time ago when I was in my 20s and 30s, because I wasted a lot of time um, in a, now I don't want to say a pity party because it was a serious issue from the abuse that I suffered. So it wasn't like somebody might throw a fit or have a pity party over something that's pretty minor. Like this was all very major stuff going on, and so you know, it's uh, it's tough. So you know we have to take the time to invest in ourselves, in our day, and every day just kind of sometimes can sort of seem to run together and glom together, and then pretty soon before you know it we're not really enjoying life and we're not really enjoying our time here. And so I try to make time for that, actually. And even though the days are really full and there's not a lot of time, I really just try to be glad to be alive, like she said here. Find to do something that makes us feel wonderful, truly glad to be alive. And and it's so much better now than it was before. My life, I'm in such a much better place than I used to be. And just the simple things make me happy. And just having a roof over my head, and having be able to cook supper for my husband who's still here. He's terminally ill, but he's still here with me. Taking care of my cat. These little things, and learning to take care of myself. These things actually really they do matter, and they actually bring me a lot of peace. These simple things, that maybe, years ago I would have just not appreciated as much as I do now. So I think sometimes, we don't have time to do a whole lot of, some people are very busy and just don't have a lot of time to invest like that. But it's just the simple little things, really, that kind of bring me a lot of peace and a lot of happiness. And, it's when I do have time to actually do these reflection, like reflecting and going for a walk or whatever, then I do. But it's very kind of rare through the week that I actually have time for that. But I'm just kind of, overall happy to be here and happy to be alive and glad that I made the decision to reach out and get some help, right? So I think that's really important what she's written there, and it's really awesome. And so yeah, we'll move on. I want to actually look at this Havoka.org again. It's their inner child work. I think what they've written here is quite interesting. They've got a lengthy piece here. And I did a lot of inner child healing work with John Bradshaw's work, and like I said, Robert Burney, as well as in Your Envisioned Mind with Beverly Searle out of Australia. And all three of those, I guess, those sort of one of them is a real program, like a real sort of a healing therapy type program, Your Envisioned Mind. But the other stuff was just the books, John Bradshaw's books and Robert Burney's book, and they were very, very helpful. And so I want to see what these guys have to say. I don't know who wrote this article up, but it's from Havoka.org, Havoca.org. And we'll pick up where we left off. We're talking about learning to love ourselves. This is inner child work and learning to love ourselves. That's the piece that we're on right now. And they said here, we need to own that we have the power to choose where to focus our mind. So this is because yesterday's, if you want to go back and listen to yesterday's show, they said, whenever life gets too good or too comfortable, many times the old disease messages that we used to, or that we do carry with us, such as like fear and shame messages, etc., tell us that we don't deserve to have a good life. We don't deserve to enjoy life, and it says it can keep us from loving ourselves, really. So we're looking at the next portion where they said we need to own that we have the power to choose where to focus our mind. We can consciously start viewing ourselves from the witness perspective. And it's time to fire the judge, our critical parent, and choose to replace that judge with our higher self, or who is a loving parent. We can intervene in our own process to protect ourselves from the perpetrator within. And the perpetrator within, they're talking about the critical parent disease voice. So it's that inner voice that tells us that, we don't deserve anything good, or that, we're whatever this voice would be telling us, right? That's negative or toxic or, not good, not healthy, right? So we can, they said we can fire that judge, that critical parent judge. We can fire them, and we can hire, or we can replace that judge with our higher self, who's a loving parent. So we can actually have this loving parent within this person, this this adult or whoever it is in the situation that we choose to have, within us, who's loving, who is not going to be toxic and critical and, run us down or make us feel that we're lesser than or whatever the situation is. This higher power, this higher inner self is is loving. So that's what we need. And I know that's what, when I did this inner child healing work, that's what I did. And it really did make a big difference, this stuff. We have to be, like I said, you need to be careful when you're doing inner child healing work. I was able to do it on my own pretty much, but you want to make sure that you are safe enough to do something like that, because this stuff is very, very difficult to do. And they just put in parentheses, it's almost impossible to go from critical parent to compassionate, loving parent in one step. So they say, so the first step often is to try to observe ourselves from a neutral position or a scientific observer perspective sort of thing. I actually call it like a third-party person. And that's what I did without even realizing, because this was before I even started my healing journey, really. I didn't really know anything about all this stuff. I just was traumatized, really, because my abuser dad was staying with me for a year, and he's old, really old. And it's not like he could do anything to me anymore. The only thing he could do possibly would be to kill me. And I allowed him to stay with me for a year, and it really threw me off because I had gotten away from my abuser parents. I had gotten away from my abuser dad for years. And then as an adult and a 44-year-old woman, this was after I started my healing journey already, but I hadn't done a whole lot of work in it. And I actually allowed him to stay with me for 1 year because he needed a place to stay until he could get his support in Canada for senior housing in Canada. And so, I thought, okay, none of my other siblings would allow him to stay with them. And they were smart. And because my dad is mentally ill, psychologically ill, and he's a schizophrenic, paranoid, and borderline personality disorder issues, and he won't get help, and he's never did get help, and he's always been a problem to himself and to others. And I allowed him to stay with me, so I panicked, and I wrote my story, a blog about the abuse, and I actually was looking at it as a third-party person, but it was written from my eyes at about 13 years old, when that's sort of where I started to write from. But the thing is I was taking a look at it. What happened? Like what I was looking on the outside at the whole family picture instead of just looking at the whole thing from a victim standpoint, which I had always done. So I did that third party thing. They're talking about, observing ourselves from a neutral position or a scientific observer perspective. But I just call it a third party person, somebody looking in on the situation other than myself, to look at the big picture and look at, what was going on and what caused me to feel the way that I did, what caused me to be, so distressed as a child, and what the real issues were. And it was helpful to do that. So whoever wrote this article says, this is what enlightenment and consciousness raising are all about, owning our power to be a co-creator of our lives by changing our relationship with ourselves. So they said, we can change the way we think, we can change the way we respond to our own emotions, and we need to detach from our wounded self in order to allow our spiritual self to guide us. So we are unconditionally loved, and the Spirit does not speak to us from judgment and shame. And tomorrow, not tomorrow, but Monday, we'll pick up the rest of this. It's really quite interesting. She's talking about her own, I think it's whoever wrote this is talking about their own process of going through this inner child healing. So we'll pick up this on Monday, the rest of it. But you can go to their website, havoka.org, and look under the Survivor tab and under Inner Child Healing, and then Learning to Love Ourselves, and you'll see, if you want to read the rest of this, it's quite lengthy, and it's really good info, so you be sure and check that out. And positive reinforcement, I can be positive. I don't have to be negative, down all the time because I'm not getting things done, or, I didn't get this done. So, instead of just looking at the negative stuff, what am I doing right in my daily walk? And what progress have I made? I've made lots of progress. And just the fact that I'm continuing on in my healing journey actually is positive right there. So we can be, not too hard on ourselves, In the meantime, I know I have work to do, so I do need to be disciplined, and I have to be disciplined on myself. I need to be responsible to make progress, right? So if I want to make any progress, it's really going to be up to me. So I got to be responsible for that. But I also don't want to be too hard on myself because, the days are pretty full. I don't have a lot of time. So when I don't get things done, it's kind of like, well, okay, we'll try again tomorrow. I just try again the next day. It's like, okay, I wake up in the morning, I'm like, I'll try again to get this stuff done because I don't have a lot of time, just like everybody else. And but what am I doing right? Just continuing on. That's what I would say. Just keep going forward, keep moving forward, and getting the help when I need it and where I need it, and the type of help that I choose. And I think that's really important. And we can look at a positive affirmation. Today's is I take full charge of my life today. And these positive affirmations, I'll tell you where I got these. As I usually say, this is heartwithsoul.com, Hearts with Soul. So it's http colon forward slash www.heartswithsoul.com /child underscore abuse.htm. These are just a whole bunch of positive affirmations we can say for ourselves. Today's is I take full charge of my life today, and really that's awesome. We have to take full charge of our life as adults. I mean, as a child, couldn't be in charge of anything. And so as an adult survivor of abuse, I have to be in charge of my life today, every day. And I need to make the decisions that are healthy for myself, and I need to make decisions that are going to get me to a better space and a better place today. It truly is up to me. And I didn't used to think like that. I kind of thought that I was just at the mercy and the whim of whatever way the wind blew, sort of thing. And I didn't really take responsibility for my life or anything else until a very late age in life. And when I really started reaching out and getting help and reading a lot of material, I started to realize, wow, this is my responsibility, and nobody else can do this for me. Because I was trying to be an adult, when I became an adult, especially late teens and early 20s, but I never dealt with the abuse. So I was never able to fully function properly in any relationship type situation, or even function with myself properly because of the issues. And, if I didn't reach out and get help, and I should have at that point, because I was kind of moving from crisis to crisis all the time, and they weren't necessarily all my own creation, but it's just that I'd never handled anything properly, never dealt with anything properly, and so always felt like I was just sort of at the mercy and the whim of the wind, whichever way the wind blew. Now I just take full charge of my life today. That's something I can say all day, but I actually do take full charge of my life, because we have to be responsible for that. Nobody's going to be able to do this stuff for me. As an adult, there's no way. I'm responsible to make sure that my needs are being met, that I'm taking good care of myself, taking care of things in my life that need to be done. Being responsible, being the responsible adult. And I guess what really drives me forward to do that is because growing up in an abusive, dysfunctional home, watching two adults not take care of themselves, not take care of their children, and let things go and let things slide. That's where my life was. That's how I learned to behave, and that's how I learned how to cope, was just let things go and don't do the right things. And so, now as an adult who's on a healing journey, I look back at that and I'm like, wow, I do not want to do that. I lived my whole life like that, especially when I was forced to when I was a child, just being, growing up in that situation. Now as the adult, a person in my control of my own life, I want to make sure I'm getting things done properly, responsibly, right? So I started taking responsibility for my life, and that's important. That's very, very important for a lot of us who grew up in abusive, dysfunctional homes, where we were not shown how to do any of this stuff, or even how to cope, how to deal with anything. And it's easy to let things slide and easy to let things go, just because we've never been really shown properly how to take care of ourselves or how to do things, right? So it is important to get the information. I do a lot of reading and a lot of looking into things, and I'll do a lot of research, actually, is what I do. So I'm always looking around for helpful information for myself, right? And that's because I don't have any other way to get it. I don't have somebody I can call and say, I really need help with this. I mean, as far as like just doing day-to-day life, And I thought, years ago I was actually thinking about getting a life coach, And but now I'm like, no, I can do this. I just need to focus, and I need to pay attention and get things done that I need to get done, and not put off things, and let my life become sort of as an adult, allow my life to go spinning out of control. And that's what I decided that it was not going to do. And so the latter half of my, adult years here that I've been responsible for, especially in my healing journey, have been pretty good, because I'm actually taking care of things. But, it's a lot of work, and it's a lot of work to maintain. And I find that it's hard sometimes, and I think that's everybody. Everybody, it doesn't matter whether they're a survivor of abuse or not, sometimes find things a little overwhelming. And that's when we need to reach out and get some help. If we're overwhelmed, we need to sit back and to check out what is priority, what's not priority. What do I really need to focus on? Am I focusing on other things that don't really need to be done? Or is this really priority? And what really is priority? Making these decisions on what's very important that needs to be done. The other stuff can wait, because sometimes we can't do everything all at once. It's too much. Certain things will come at you, like certain things will come at me different times, and there's too many things on my plate. For instance, like right now, and I have to decide what is priority and what's not, in my day-to-day life. And I have to decide what's really important, what can be put off on the back burner, what doesn't have to be done right now, sort of thing. And so that's very, very helpful. And to be able to do that and take a look and make sure that things are getting done, a little piece by piece by piece sort of thing, it's very important. So I take full charge of my life today. I think that's awesome. And then next, we'll look at self-care. What am I doing physically, spiritually, emotionally to care for myself? And spiritually, emotionally, I'm doing really quite well. Physically, still working on getting, healthier. And so there, I haven't made hardly any progress in that, but I plan on doing it. So the plan is there. The plan's in motion. That's good to get some exercise, really take better care of myself. This is Havoka's Survivor's Bill of Rights. Specific to the domain of psychotherapy or therapy, like we have the right to receive information or informative answers to questions about your condition, your hopes for recovery, the goals and methods of treatment, the therapist's qualifications. I think that's very important. For survivors of abuse, if you do go out and get a therapist, you want to make sure that you want to check their qualifications and check out their ID. Make sure they are qualified and they are who they say they are, and that they actually are qualified and actually licensed and are actually currently licensed practicing therapist who's got everything, all their ducks in a row. We need to know we have rights to question them about our condition, our hopes for recovery. We have rights to answers about all that, and goals and methods of treatment. So just remember, if you're looking out there for a counselor or therapist and whatnot, you do have rights, and you need to be in charge of your life, and they need to know that you know that, so that they can see that they aren't going to be able to railroad you or try to get you to do things that you don't want to do, or be involved in something that you're not really comfortable with. You have rights, you do have rights, and you need to make sure that you assert those rights. And we all do. It is actually our responsibility to assert ourselves in that situation, any situation. We have rights, and we have rights to just like everybody else. So make sure that they know that you know that. Because it's very important. I've actually read that many times. They need to know that you are well aware that you're in control of your healing journey, and that you know what you need, and that they can help you, but that you do know what you need, and that you do know like what's going to help you and what's not going to help you. Because otherwise, it's easy to get kind of railroaded into something that we're not really comfortable with. So be really careful. Personal Bill of Rights. This is Charles H. Whitfield. I think this is really cool. This is Healing the Child Within. I guess it's a book that he wrote. This is old. It's been around for a long time, but it's everywhere. Charles H. Whitfield, MD, Healing the Child Within. It's just a bunch of it's 38 personal Bill of Rights that we have as survivors of abuse. We're on number 28, and I found this on Pinterest, which I thought was interesting. But it's actually everywhere. If you actually look for it, it's around different areas, different places, different websites. Number 28, I have the right to change and grow. I have the right to change and grow. So yesterday's was I have the right to be flexible and be comfortable with being flexible, right, with doing so. Today's is I have the right to change and grow. I think it says the little typing, the ink isn't very good on it, so I can hardly see that. But yeah, I have the right to change, just like everybody else. I can change. I can do things differently. I don't always have to do things the same way. We all have these rights, and we need to know that we do have them. And we have the right to make changes and to change and to grow. And I don't have to stay the same for somebody else, and I don't have to play a certain role all the time for somebody else. I know that I did a lot of work in that, looking at that with John Bradshaw's work about the roles that many times that abuse survivors have played in their lifetime within the family unit, depending on the situation and what was going on, and how many siblings were involved and what type of roles that we might have taken on, or actually been forced really to play. And I mean, there was some serious really dysfunctional role stuff going on in my home growing up. And I mean, my family just assumed that I was going to keep just playing that role the rest of my life into my adulthood. So they treat me the same way that they treated me as a child, see. And I think that, you know, when I started reading John Bradshaw's books, Healing the Shame That Binds You and Homecoming, Healing the Wounded Inner Child, those two books that he's got there, or Healing the Child Within, whichever, those two books that he has that are really, oh man, they're really good. Well, I started reading those, and I started getting into the information and looking at that, and I thought, yeah, I mean, that wasn't my fault that I had to play those roles, those roles were forced onto me. I was just trying to survive in an abusive home. And so, as an adult, if my remaining family members, that's kind of why I cut them off. I don't speak to any of them anymore. They're just expecting me to play that role, Oh, I'm just the stupid Lori. I'm the drug user Lori. I'm the Lori that's never going to make it. I'm the Lori that's kind of useless and worthless, kind of like, a useless twit or whatever. I'm the stupid one who deserved to be abused as a child, and I really did deserve it because I was really bad, according to them. According to them, I really deserved everything I got, and even if they had known about the child sexual abuse, they would probably say, well, it was your fault. You must have caused that because you were so bad as a child. You needed to be beaten and abused. That's how my older siblings treated me as an adult, away from my abusive parents. Even beyond my abusive parents, my older siblings, they seem to look at me as if I'm some sort of a fool who needed to be beaten on, right? And that, some of them would say, yeah, I mean, you deserved everything you got. And, I mean, how horrific can you possibly be? Nobody deserves that. And so I took that necklace of all those roles, those horrible roles that I took on from the abuse and that I was forced to play as a child. I took that necklace off and I threw it away. That's what I thought of. I thought all that stuff, all that garbage was hanging on my neck, like a necklace. That I was forced to wear it. And I thought, no, I don't own that thing, and it doesn't belong to me. I'm me. I'm who I am. I'm none of those things that they say that I am, or that they thought I was. They don't even know who I am. But I do. I know who I am. I'm an incredibly strong woman, and I'm a good person, and I don't really deserve to be treated like that. I cut my abuser family off years ago. It was the best thing I could have done. So it's very, it's very important, these things. We need to make sure that we're not playing those roles, and taking on that stuff. We need to find people who are going to be good to us and treat us right, and want to be in our lives and respect us and have some, and be, and show some dignity and care and kindness, right? And and I need to do the same, I can't expect people to treat me with respect or dignity or compassion or care if I'm not going to do the same, right? And there's no perfect person, so there's no person out there that we should be idealizing and saying, oh, I just love this person and they're just going to be the be-all and end-all in my life and I'll put them on a pedestal and they're so great and they're so wonderful. And then the minute they make a mistake, it's just such a tragic issue, because we've set them up on a pedestal. We don't want to be doing that either, right, with other people. And because no one's perfect. People can, and they do quite often hurt other people in what they say, and they do. But the issue is I'm not expecting anybody to be perfect around me because I'm not. And what it is I just expect common decency and common respect where it's due. And if I make a mistake, then I need to apologize. And I need to tell them, I'm sorry and own up to that mistake, And if I hurt somebody, I need to own up to it. But then if somebody hurts me, they also need to own up to it as well. And that's all I'm expecting, to be treated as I would treat others, right? So we have about a minute left here. We'll have to pick up the rest of this. We'll look at identifying boundaries and stuff. You can get that from, that's Michael C. Irving, Child Abuse Survivor Monument. If you go to his website, you can find a Survivor tab, Self-Care, and under there he's got all kinds of boundary work. So if you're interested in boundary work, he's got some interesting stuff about boundaries there, and you can check that out. We'll look at the rest of that on Monday. So yeah, I hope you have a really good weekend, and I hope everything goes well for you. If you're struggling and you're having a hard time today, make sure, or tonight or whenever, you make sure you reach out and do not suffer on your own. You call a crisis line, you call somebody, you get some help, and do not suffer on your own. And you just do whatever it takes to make sure that you get the help that you need, because you deserve that. I know I do. You do. None of us deserve to be abused. None of us deserve to be suffering from the abuse. We deserve help, just like everybody else. And you make sure that you get that help, right? And I wish you a really wonderful weekend. And we'll pick up here on Monday morning, same time, same place. And be good to yourself. Be kind to yourself this weekend, and do something nice for yourself. That's what I'm going to do. Take good care of yourselves. Till the next time. Okay, bye-bye.